Hello, everyone. We are back with another review, this time for Silent Hill Homecoming. You can see it there in the background. We just completed this game on stream as of the 1st of January 21st, the 7th of January 2025. Sorry about that. We're going to talk about it like we do with all our normal reviews. We do it in 3 parts. First part, we talk about mechanics. Second parts, we talk about story. And third, we give kind of an overall recommend, not recommend, anything that we might have missed in the other categories. So, first things first, of course, we will talk about this game from a mechanical standpoint. Mechanically, it is very much a Silent Hill game. It has puzzles. It's got the survival horror elements you would expect with the health pickups and weapon upgrades and all of that stuff. It doesn't really deviate from the formula other than the combat. Now, the combat is probably the biggest move forward. I don't know if I want to call it really an advancement, because for me, it was a little hard to deal with. We did play on normal, so this might be a little bit easier on easy, obviously. But on normal, the combat just doesn't feel good. It has a dodge roll. It has a like a lock-on system that's supposed to be like this kind of like one-on-one kind of feel, even though there's multiple monsters in multiple scenes. The dodging is not great. The rolling, as far as I know, does not have invincibility frames like a game that would use that kind of combat would have. The combo system, which is basically just like a certain amount of light attacks and a heavy attack, or a charged heavy attack. That's basically the entire melee combat. And then, of course, you have guns, which is where you just go, you point your gun, and you just, shoot at things. Overall, it's definitely a step in a different direction from a combat standpoint. I personally don't think I liked it, to be honest. I think it's just a it just bogs down the game. It really does. I think the combat is just too involved for a game like this. I think the simplicity of combat really helps games like games like the survival horror genre. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. In the survival horror genre, it's I think the simplicity of the combat really helps you focus more on the story and less on fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And this game focused so much on the fighting that I feel like there was like a lot less puzzles. It was more like traversal, maybe a single puzzle, maybe a puzzle or two, and then like a lot of fights. There's not a lot of boss fights really. There's only 4 bosses I think in the entire game, but there's multiple different mobs and stuff. So it doesn't have any more bosses than like the earlier games do, but it just, I don't know. I think the combat really bogs it down. From a story standpoint, this one's kind of interesting. They kind of try to hit you with a twist at the end. And the decisions that give you the good ending are weird, because basically it comes down to 2 specific choices, right? You either have shoot your mother or have a torture device kill her. That's decision 1. And the second decision is less obvious than that, which is where you hear someone in a confessional and you either push triangle twice and forgive them, or you push like circle twice and you don't forgive them, and you find out later that it was your dad, or at least a astral form of your dad, because technically you find your dad later. So you forgive or don't forgive your father. And like, it's very weird, because I think it's one of those where from a story standpoint it makes a little bit of sense, but it's also one of those that I think definitely shows its age, right? Basically, they like the forgiving of the father is an interesting kind of perspective for Alex, because the father basically admits to trying to suck the joy out of Alex's life, which is the older brother here. This is Josh, on who Alex is searching to find throughout the whole game. Um, and basically he's just trying to get him to not experience emotion is the goal of the father, because of something that's established through this order, and something that's been basically happening for decades in Shepherd's Glen, to protect them from this world-ending calamity. Um, and because of an event, which is the twist of the game, which I won't spoil here, um, things go wrong. Alex leaves, goes, joins the military, comes back, and everything's gone literally to hell. Um, so, from a story standpoint, I think what the game is trying to do is interesting. I think it just does too much. I think it has too much going on. To really make a coherent story about childhood trauma, about religious trauma, and stuff like that. It seems like there's a bunch of like these ideas kind of tacked on to the main story of Alex wanting to find Josh, and then getting the twist at the end about what happens to Josh, or what happened to Josh. It seems like they had like the basis, and then just wanted to throw a little bit of story elements on top of that, and they don't really seem to mesh very well. I think the representation of the bosses to the families is really, really cool, because that's what the bosses represent. Each boss is a representation of how each of the founding families connected with their part in the pact that saved them from this evil, right? Which eventually comes for them, all obviously, which is why we fight the bosses. The design of the boss is really cool. But overall, I honestly, I don't think I really enjoyed Silent Hill Homecoming, if I'm being completely honest. Um, I think the combat weighs it down too much. I think the story is just a little too jumbled to make sense. Um, and even with the twist of like, ooh, that wasn't what I expected, it just, I don't know, it doesn't really grab you like the stories that you see in earlier games. Now, I do know this is not a Team Silent game, this is a separate company, but even what was the one, like Shattered Memories, I thought had a very good coherent story. In fact, I think Shattered Memories has one of the most interesting, because it has that like rotation by choices kind of story. I think that one is a really good one. Some people disagree. I can understand from a mechanical standpoint why they might say that, but this one, I think it's bogged down by the combat, and I think the story is just a little too incoherent, really. um Honestly, the endings are very wildly. We got the good ending, which was the whole point of the playthrough. But if you really want to get through the Silent Hill series, I would say give Homecoming a go. But I think overall, I think this is the first time I'm going to recommend maybe just skipping over Homecoming. I don't really like the story. I really don't like the combat. The characters are very like paper thin. The twist is kind of like, okay, I guess that's how it ends, and then you kind of end up with whatever ending you did. The endings are a little like the first choice of the ending is very obvious, but the second choice of the ending is very obscure, and it locks you out. Like, you can't just make the other decision. So if you don't know that you're making a decision there, then you just get locked into an ending without even knowing. And I think that's also really disappointing to see, because like I literally saved before and after that just in case I didn't pick the right dialogue options. Thankfully we did, but I don't like that. I think the world design is fine. You spend a lot of time outside of Silent Hill, which is interesting. I think there's some stuff to be explored there. Like, I don't think Silent Hill necessarily has to 100% take place in Silent Hill, right? Um, I think Silent Hill as an ideal is something that can be explored outside of Silent Hill. But we haven't really seen that, as far as I know, in most of the games. So, but this one has a little bit, but it tries to touch on a bunch of topics, but doesn't do any justice to any one of them. I feel I feel like if you're looking at like religious trauma, religious pressure, societal pressure, Silent Hill 3 is far better at that. If you're looking about a story about forgiveness and making hard decisions and stuff like that, I think Silent Hill 2 does that a lot better. And that game also has a twist at the end. So I don't know. It feels like Homecoming looked at the previous games and looked at either the movie. I don't know if the movie was out at that time, or maybe the pieces of the movie were visible or something. And just try to put too much into it. I think this story could have been more coherent if they had just like focused on like one or two threads instead of like four or five. So overall, if you want to play Silent Hill, I don't think this is the worst one to play. But if you're like, should I start with this one, or I'm interested in Silent Hill, should I play this one? I don't know if I could really recommend it. I can't think of any time that I was playing this game where I felt like I was having fun with it, and it is the story I'm the least interested in. So take that as you may. People will probably disagree with me, but that's fine. That's what the whole point of these reviews are. It's just my opinion sent out to you guys that you can use to then make your own opinions based on your gameplay, and I would love to hear from you. So if you like this review, don't forget to like the review. Also, leave us a comment if you've beaten the game and you really liked it, or if you beat the game and you really didn't like it, or you got some weird ending and you want to talk about it. Leave that all down in the comments. I do appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe. All of our playthroughs from our Twitch stream do end up here on YouTube. Well, almost all of them end up here on YouTube. So if you want to catch more of that Silent Hill content, there should be a playlist down below. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next review. Bye-bye.